Welcome to Red-tastic. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for refusing to fulfill my father's last wish? Background. I'm not on good terms with my parents. My sister is highly narcissistic, and both my parents enable her. Ever since I was small, I wasn't allowed to do anything better than my sister. If she got 60% in an exam, I was supposed to keep my score below 60, even if I could score more than 90. I broke this rule during college entrance exams. I got into the top university in my country. I prepared for 2 years to achieve that. Even though my score was good, my sister cried and threw a tantrum about how embarrassed she would feel if I went to a better college than her. So I was forced to attend the subpar college she attended. Now that I was finally away from home, I worked and saved up. I also did my best to prepare for campus job interviews. Right before I started attending job interviews, my father called to tell me that I cannot get a job until my sister does. This pissed me off to no extent. I ignored him. I landed an amazing job and moved to another state right after my college ended. I have been in low contact since then. They gave a police complaint saying that I was missing. They tried to call my company to tell them to fire me so that I can return home. I am now married and I live with my husband. They have harassed me, my husband, and his family before my wedding in an attempt to stop it. I went no contact after that. They even gave a complaint saying that my husband kidnapped me and I had to spend the whole day at the police station proving he was my husband. Last week, my father had a heart attack. His condition is not so good. He is on his deathbed. One of my relatives called me to tell me that he wanted to talk to me, see me, and make amends before he died. I refused to do anything that is related to them. My mother and sister have been contacting me from different numbers. They begged, they yelled, they tried all the tricks in the books. I refused to budge and said I won't talk to any of them again. Obviously, my family thinks I'm the a-hole. My husband's family thinks I'm not. So am I the a-hole? You're not the a-hole, OP. Your parents and your sister are. The way your parents treated you is horrible. And their extreme favoritism towards your sister is almost unbelievable. They were willing to ruin your life just to make her feel better, and that's truly awful. I'm glad you found your own family with your husband and his parents. While it's sad that your dad is dying, you don't owe it to him to go see him. However, if there is even a small part of you that would regret not saying goodbye, it might be worth considering. You could hear him out and decide how you feel afterwards. Good luck, OP. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. Somebody dying doesn't negate the terrible things they did. If he has expressed he wants you there to someone, he could apologize over the phone for his behavior. They haven't told you why he wants you there either. If you want to do something, then I would suggest putting him on the phone. If they deny that, you know it's a trap. Honestly, he might not even be dying. I've seen multiple stories of bad parents only reaching out to the child they abused just because they are afraid they're going to hell and want forgiveness, with no repentance on their part. If they're not making an effort to make amends on the phone, there's a good chance they know whatever they actually have to say wouldn't be enough to get you to visit. If your father truly regretted what he did, he would accept that he has to deal with the consequences of what he did to you. He doesn't get to die feeling good about himself, and he would deal with it because that's what you do when you realize you've done wrong. Not the a-hole. These are terrible and toxic people. Your choice to go. If you go, I would say keep your mother and sister out of the room and just listen to your dad try to make amends by himself. Whatever he says is likely going to be more guilt trip manipulation, but there is a chance it might not be. Don't let your mother and sister sway you because their opinion on assholery is worth less than nothing. Do think about how you'll feel 20 years from now if he dies and you skipped it. Regret? Relief? Then think about the risks of going. Manipulation showing that you will cave to demands. More room for legal nonsense, etc. 100% up to you. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to be a sudden father? Backstory. 5 years ago, I was in a relationship with Amy that had run its course. I was 22 and working for $8 an hour at one of my uncle's gas stations and living with my parents. She wanted to start a family immediately, and I was not ready for that in any way. We split amicably and she goes on to date Alan, a friend of a friend who worked on the oil rigs. Amy gets pregnant almost immediately, and almost 9 months later, she and Alan are parents to a baby girl, Amelia. Fast forward to the present. Unfortunately, Alan was killed in a work accident. Amy ends up calling me not long after and tells me she thinks Amelia could be my daughter. The timing was close enough that she could have been pregnant just before we split up, and nobody would have known any better since she was dating Alan only a week later. Amelia definitely looks more like me than Alan, so it's not out of the question. It also happens that I am now financially secure enough to support a family now that my uncle has retired and given me a stake in his business to keep me around to run things in his place. I know it looks like Amy is just trying to find someone to pay the bills, but I believe her when she says there's a good chance Amelia could be my daughter. At the same time, I've barely met the kid. She was raised for years by Alan, and by all rights that makes him her dad, not me. I feel bad for Amelia not having a father, but I don't really see why I should swoop in to become a dad. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to find out whether Amelia is blood related to me and wanting to leave the past in the past? I don't want to be a replacement dad. I don't want to be financially on the hook for a kid I've only seen a few times in 5 years. And I don't want to be the piggy bank for Amy to not go to work. I don't hold any grudges over this, and I don't blame Amy for doing anything she can for her kid. But this isn't my circus, and these aren't my monkeys as far as I can see. Edit. I will speak to a lawyer about this, as some people have suggested. If I have a legal obligation, then I have a legal obligation. But I still think Amelia is Alan's daughter regardless of blood. I'm going to step out and let the crowd judge, but I'll respond to information requests if I see them. This is a tough one, OP. You clearly told Amy you weren't ready to be a father. This might have added to her decision to tell Alan Amelia was his if she had doubts. It is sad that Alan died, but Amy coming over to tell you that Amelia might be yours, especially now, makes it look like she doesn't have good intentions. You not wanting to swoop in to be Amelia's dad is understandable. The poor kid just lost the man she thought was her dad, and if you showed up, I'm sure it wouldn't be easy for her to handle. I hope you all sort it out. Hiring a lawyer is definitely for the best. And whatever you do, please remember that Amelia is a child who just lost a father. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. It's a scary thing to just learn, but you need to find out. Some people here are talking about financial security, but in all honesty, if you're in the US, Amelia is already getting SS checks from her father's death and will get them until she's 18, so that really might not be the issue. You need to find out and then discuss with Amy how this should be handled. If you're the father and she expects child support, she may get less than what she's getting from SS already to help with raising Amelia. May be unpopular here, but not the a-hole. Frankly, if she didn't check who the dad was for 5 years, that's on her. I would talk to a lawyer to be sure she can't try to pull strings on you. But this is manipulative AF, even if you are the dad. If you can live with the possibility it is your kid and not feel bad, I say do that. The kid is blameless here and her father's passing is tragic. But you should not have any undesired obligations to a child she kept from you and who another man signed the birth certificate of, took legal responsibility for. You've asked for judgment on a few different things, and some I cannot reasonably judge without knowing the law where you live. Taking a paternity test could have legal implications, and so could refusing to take one. You may have legal obligations to the child, or you may not. You're not an a-hole for how you feel about being a father, but you would be an a-hole if you attempted to skirt or avoid your legal duties. You really should be seeking legal advice on this matter. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to adopt my sister-in-law when my wife and I were already planning on adopting? On a throwaway because I really don't want this situation connected to my main account. I will also try to add a lot of details because my family is pretty split with this situation and we don't know what to do. My wife right now is currently 24. Her mom waited a while before having a second child, so my wife's little sister is now 13. My wife and I have always wanted a child and we have decided to have one, maybe two, but most likely one. We talked about it and decided to adopt a baby in the future for 2 reasons. 1, we want to give a baby a new home, and 2, my wife has some fertility issues that won't make producing a child impossible, but very difficult. I would like to point out that we were not planning on adopting a baby now or in the near future. We don't feel financially stable enough and we still want time with each other without a kid for a little while longer. We thought about adopting in our early mid-30s. So a couple of weeks ago, my mother-in-law started having multiple health issues. She wasn't expected to pass really soon, but we have been advised to get all of her stuff in order, just in case worse comes to worse. One issue that we are having is that my mother-in-law wants us to adopt my wife's little sister when she passes. She believes that we are the best to do it because the girl's father has already passed. Our immediate family is either too old, like in their 40s, and don't want to start over raising a child, or simply not able to raise a child. We are supposedly around the perfect age to bring in a child, and we are already planning on adopting. My wife and I thought about it for a long time and came to the conclusion that we didn't feel ready to adopt a little sister. Unfortunately, my mother-in-law's condition was starting to worsen a little bit quicker than we expected, so the issue was becoming more urgent. When we told her that we didn't feel comfortable taking on that job right now, she started crying and calling us names. She also said something along the lines of, "How dare you live your perfect life with your husband while your little sister, your own flesh and blood, could end up in the system," to my wife. This really upset her and I had to calm her down when we got off the phone. We would be fine with keeping her for a little while, but we just don't simply feel ready to have a new teenager in the household. Other family members have heard about the situation and some are calling us selfish for not being willing to struggle to keep somebody in the family, and some can see our side. My wife obviously feels terrible about this. She truly loves her sister, but doesn't think she can care for her correctly. Are we the a-holes here? Now for some comments. People fool themselves into thinking they're doing some righteous good by adopting a newborn who is healthy. It's a good thing, to be sure. But people who do it are 100% doing it because they want a baby, and likely struggle to have their own. People who adopt babies with genetic disorders, developmental behavioral issues, children born to substance abusers, or older children, those are heroes. They are the equivalent of rescuing abused shelter dogs. People who adopt newborns are closer to those who go to pet stores. It's good. It's fine. You're giving a puppy home. But let's be honest, it's more for you than for them. You and your wife are the a-hole to the freaking max. It's her sister. It isn't a cat or a plant. It's her sister, and if she becomes a ward of the state and is placed into foster care, your wife may not see her sister. She is 13. Her father is dead. Her mother is about to be dead, and her sister and brother-in-law are going to just throw it in and take a pass on helping her. Can you even imagine the emotional and mental toll this will take on her? Seriously, it's selfish and horrid to consider not taking her in. This might be the worst "Am I the a-hole" I've ever read.